All right, fellas, today is the day we're going to be installing our Holley Terminator X harness. I'm so freaking excited. It's been a long time coming. We started this project around 6 months ago. I think in December is when I started to actually pull the engine out of this car and get it ready. So today is the day we're going to start inserting this into our car, and hopefully we'll have a fire up either later today or tomorrow. So stay tuned. Now, for those of you who are just tuning in and maybe you're not familiar with the build, this is a 94 Mustang GT convertible that I've nicknamed the Hellstang. And so we're building this car for the 2023 Hot Rod Power Tour that is coming up in 43 days. We have to leave with this car, and the plan is, we're going to drive 2,000 or 3,000 miles in a week. So it needs to be, we really need this thing to be started this weekend so we can start to drive it, get it shaken down, all that stuff. We have 43 days, but this week I'm also leaving all week for work, so that's 5 days gone. And then when I get back, we leave for 2 weeks for vacation. So that's about 20 days out of these 43 days gone. So when I get back from vacation, I'm only going to have 20-ish days to get this car shook down. We do still have to replace the fuel pump with our high flow pump. Right now it's the stock pump back there, which is fine just to get the car started. But once it does start and we verify everything's okay, I need to swap out to the 525 Hellcat pump in the back. The rest of the fuel system consists of, it's just the stock metal lines, and then to 6 AN lines going up to a fuel pressure regulator, 80-pound fuel injectors. Our engine is still the stock short block with 115,000 miles, but we've got Pro Comp aluminum cylinder heads, Anderson N41 cam, the Holley Hi Ram. We did a high volume oil pump, so it's got head studs, it's got a whole bunch of stuff, 4-row aluminum radiator. It's got a tubular K-member, coilover suspension, and then we just redid, just kind of replaced all the OEM stuff with brakes, ball joints, tie rods, things like that. So it's all been kind of rebuilt. Even on the interior of the car, we got, short throw shifter. We did some videos where we pulled the whole interior out, did sound deadening, all that stuff. So the car's been almost revamped, top to bottom. It's got the drag pack on it, the hood, new headlights, taillights, blah, 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 right? Top to bottom. So I actually bought this car in July of last year. So I've had this thing for 8 or 9 months, and I bought it bone stock from the original owner. And so since then, anything you see that's not original, we've done it in the last 8 or 9 months, right? So it's been a big job. So let me go ahead and show you the Holley kit, and let's get started. All right, guys, so a few videos ago, we did do an unboxing of the Holley kit, but I just wanted to kind of go over this really quick one more time for you guys. So with the Holley setup, this is the 550-937 that's for the small block Ford. It does not come with any sensors. So there used to be a kit, 550-937F, that was for Fox body, and it came with kind of all the Ford sensors you needed and all the stuff. Now, Holley does still sell those things. They just sell them as kind of a la carte. You have to buy them after the fact, right? They're not included with the kit. So, so basically you're going to need fuel pressure sensor, oil pressure sensor, and those are just like some 0 to 100 PSI sensors that you can pick up from either like Low Dollar Motorsports or from Holley directly. You'd also need a coolant temperature sensor. You want a GM style. It's got a GM connector. All this stuff is kind of set up for GM style connectors, right? Because it's kind of a universal harness that they use on a bunch of stuff. And then if you also have like your factory Ford throttle body, then you would need like a special adapter, just basically a connector to be able to connect it to the Ford IAC and the Ford throttle position sensor, things like that. Now for my setup, I'm running a Holley Hi Ram, which uses a GM style throttle body and GM IAC, GM TPS. So for me, it's all plug and play, makes it a little bit simpler. But just keep that in mind, right? It's going to be a few more bucks than what you're just outlaying for the initial kit, right? Getting to the actual kit, just kind of a general overview, right? You've got a fuel injector harness. So pretty simple, plug and play, should work with our factory Ford fuel injectors. O2 sensor, this does come with a bung in case you need it, but probably you can just get rid of your factory O2 sensors and then plug this into one of the holes and then plug the additional holes that we no longer need. This is our input-output connector, so we can run this to things like an E85 sensor, different outputs, different inputs like that. Now this is an additional harness that I bought, so this is so I can run E85. Now this was pretty cheap, 40 bucks or something, but basically I bought it, it's already made. This just plugs into our E85 sensor. And then this guy runs into the Holley power tap, which this is already on the harness. You just simply plug this in, it gives it power. And then this is our input that again would go into the input here, right? Then we've got a main power harness. So this bad boy is going to go directly to the battery, to the power and ground. Then it'll just run inside the car and connect right into the ECU, right? So that's pretty easy. Then we've got kind of the main harness. Now, for my application, I am running coil near plug, GM LS coil near plug. So I did need to buy this additional sub harness from Holley. This is the 558307. This is what you would need if you want to add GM coil near plug to your small block Ford or whatever application. This is about 140 bucks, I think. And you have to basically get it, and then you have to insert some pins into this J1B connector. It was pretty simple to do this, but it took me a long time just because I'm kind of anal about stuff. I want to make it look good, you know, make it loomed right. So it took a while, but it was all really simple. Just any wiring takes just freaking forever, right? Now the main harness, again, most of the stuff, it's just going to click into place, right? So it's not too bad, not too hard to do. Then you've got a few stray wires, like you've got a switch 12-volt wire. You're going to have a tack signal wire that you need to wire in, your fuel pump wire, because Holley has a fuel pump wire on here. Use that to trigger the pump directly if it's a kind of a smaller pump, or if it's a real big pump, then you need to use that wire to trigger a relay. There might be a couple other little wires I'm missing, but otherwise, guys, there's not much to it, right? You just connect 3 or 4 wires once you get inside the car, run your main power to your battery, which if it's in your trunk, it's probably even easier. Mine's up front, so I've got to run all that. And that's it. Now the hardest part, I think, with this stuff, twofold. One is going to be getting the wiring into your car, right? So for me, I've got this little grommet that's already got the factory wiring going through, and now I need to get all this other crap through there as well, right? So once we get that into the car, that's kind of step 1 is done. That's going to be a big win. And then step 2 with this stuff is really just getting everything placed where you want it to be, right? Making sure everything reaches correctly, it's got enough room, it's not near any major heat sources, things like that. So that's what really takes the longest, right? Because a lot of the stuff is just click, plug and play, you're ready to go, but you just got to make sure it's where you want it. So where the heck do you even start on a big old project like this? Well, for me, I think I'm going to start with getting the power wires connected, just because I know that this is going to have to run into the car. And so what I don't want to do is run all the other harnesses and crap into the car only to find out I got to, send this one through as well. I want to send them through all at one time because I'm thinking, maybe I can tape them all together and then fish them all through at once, right? So figure out how this is going to lay out, but this part is going to definitely go into the car. And then basically we just got a big old fat power and ground. And they want this bad boy to go right directly to the battery. So if you guys have already seen, we're running these kind of clamps, these kind of, I don't know, almost like a bicycle clamp. So I run these on the death cart. We run these on here. I think these things are freaking awesome, but they've got a whole bunch of little, little, I don't know, extra areas to add different, cables, right? Different powers and ground. So this will make it simple. So I've got to go ahead and get some eyelets put on here. Then we can get this connected. And then I've just got to kind of figure out how I want this thing to run. All right, well, let's get started. All right, so I popped the battery out, and what I ended up doing is I just ran our wire. You can see it goes underneath our little battery tray, and then I had to cut the loom so I could pull the red wire, the positive, out because we needed it to come back here. And then I put some tape back on either side, to keep it all in place. And then I also cut this. I probably cut 8 inches off. It was a little bit too long now, but so now I'm just going to get some eyelets on both of these guys, and then we can hook it up into this eyelet here, and then probably that corner eyelet there. And then the routing. So again, it took me a few minutes, right? Because I went underneath the car. I was like, maybe I'll run it underneath the motor, and then I was like, yeah, I don't like that idea. So I'm just gonna end up running it kind of over top of the transmission. I think that's where the majority of all this stuff's gonna end up going. So I'm just gonna get it routed over there after we do this, get the battery all done, and because this is also, I have another harness from the ignition that comes off here. And I made a little Deutsch connector for it, so that connects in there. So that can kind of run with that. Maybe I'll end up, taping them together, zip tie them together. Honestly, they could probably be integrated into one loom, but that's too much work. So we'll just we'll put it all together. I think I'm even gonna, might even take some tape on some of this stuff, like a little piece of tape, and just put, Terminator power, Holley ground. That way, I don't know, just That way a year from now you come back and you're like, what the hell is this thing going to? You know, what's this wire for? That way you kind of know, right? So just try to make it easy on your future selves, right? All right, we are off to a slow freaking start, but got this thing all done. So I threw a little label on there, Holley negative, you know, heat shrink tubed it. I even freaking put some loom around it, you know, all the way up here, wrapped it in my, my whatever that heat tape crap, some kind of electrical tape, fancy electrical tape. Same over here. I also didn't like how I could see the red on this wire, so I wrapped this with some tape too. So this is all good. Look at that. I mean, it's like a freaking professional did it, right? And then I think next step, now that we got our power and stuff, we'll tape this harness to the main harness over there on the ground, and we're going to get in the fender, and we're going to try to get that thing fished through. That's going to be kind of the next hardest thing, I think, of this whole thing, is getting all that crap through there, and then getting it all situated. All right, let me catch you fellas up a little bit. So I'm still working on, you know, getting this thing over here for the power wire. I got that through, and then I grabbed the Holley harness and I started to kind of fish that from inside the engine bay through my little tiny hole over here, and we've gotten it most of the way through. Down here on this SN95, we do have kind of a bolt that was holding in the fuel line, so I took the little bolt out just temporarily so we could move the lines, be able to get all this stuff through. Mostly it was hard to get through this big ass relay, so you know, we got that all through. So this crap now needs to go into the car through here. So we have to figure that out and probably chop a little hole so that way this can slide back in once the wires are in. So all right, so that's what we got to work on. But I was also trying to figure out what wires need to go into the car. So Holley gives you this whole little stack of kind of, they call it the loose wires. So basically, what is there, 5 of them? So this needs to go to a battery, which is kind of annoying since we just did the battery. So 12 volt, just power, right? They just say connect this anywhere to a chassis ground. This green wire, this needs to go into the car. So this is for a fuel pump. And actually this red wire, this power, this is the power for the fuel pump. So because they have that relay down there, I think is for the fuel pump. So this is our power and 12 volt power. And then this is going to be our switched power for the pump, which with my MF Customs harness, I think their wire they've already got for me. I just have to connect to it. And then I think I think that's what this relay down here is. That's a relay too for the fuel pump. So anyway, so this just needs to go into the car. So I'll probably put this into the loom or tape it to the loom. That'll come in. Now these 2 other wires, these are not being used for my application. So what these are, that white wire is used to trigger a CD box, and then the yellow is for an RPM signal input when you're not controlling timing or running capacitive discharge. So we are doing that, so we don't need to use this. I do have a tack signal wire that's inside the car. I think it's that brown wire right there. This is my tack signal. So again, this was kind of the harness, the stock harness that was modified by the guys at MF Customs. So I did a video on that. So they've got, you know, you can see it's nicely labeled. They've got me a 12 volt switched power supply, so I can connect my 12 volt switch right to that wire. This is my tack signal wire, which this needs to pin into the Holley. This goes into J1A pin 28. So I will literally pull the wire out of the J1A, pop that in there. That's really, really simple. We just did that on the last video with the sub harness. And then up here where you can't see it is also a green wire that's for the fuel pump. So that one I'll just have to connect together, get those in. So what is it, 3 wires? I think so. So it's just literally 3 wires, and then, you know, obviously these 2 wires too. So 5 wires total, and then that's it. Then it's just a matter of connecting all this crap and getting it all to work. So, all right, so I'm gonna keep messing around, start to get this fish through. I'm going to ground the cylinder head right here. I've already got a connector for our ignition sub harness, so maybe I'll just put another little eyelet on here and we'll just terminate it right there, because that might be the easiest way. Then I'll have to worry about running it in. Get that taped up, and then I think we've got enough slack and stuff down here. I'm going to start shoving this stuff all through, kind of pull it down, see where we're at. And then that'll kind of tell me, you know, what we need for length and stuff out here. Because, you know, we got to make sure we got enough in the cabin to reach all the crap we need. Or maybe we get some of that stuff connected, and then that'll allow us to pull it up as much as possible to give us as much room in here. Because I want to make sure some of the forward-facing stuff like the IAC throttle position sensor, the freaking oil pressure sensor on this car is, you know, way down here, right? So that's what I'm really worried about is that one going to fit? I might have to extend that one. Otherwise, like my fuel pressure sensors back there, coolant temps right here, I think all those will work. So this might be the only one we have to extend, but we'll see. All right, so I kind of took our harness and, you know, I've got it all kind of draped out here. I kind of taped some of it up just to help it, you know, go through the hole. I'm just trying to, so it doesn't get, you know, all caught on everything because space is really tight in this little narrow corridor right here. We already got other wiring going through there. So I'm hoping I can just start to, you know, pull this guy through. And then we got all this stuff connected, and then we can kind of get all that down. The only thing I don't know on this harness, it looks like where kind of up here where this power tap is, I've got this connected already for the E85 sensor, but then I need this to go to the inputs here. So I'm just hoping, I'm kind of looking like where this would fall. It might be kind of high up in there. So hoping I have enough room to at least get this thing all connected into the connector in the car, and then hopefully it can come up in here. So otherwise, we might have to, I don't know if we can cut this and then bring it down a little bit, you know, the wires. So, yeah, actually, that might be something. Maybe I'll actually do that right now. Just going to cut it and bring it down because I'd be happier if it, you know, at least gave me some more room and then I can clean it up as we go. So for this inputs, outputs, I was able to just simply kind of cut the tape away up here where this thing was. And then once you get the loom off, there's some more tape on the actual wire. So I cut that too. And then I was able to move this down, probably give myself another, 3 or 4 inches. So just that way when this thing's inside, at least it's hanging down so I can easily get to it and be able to connect to it. The other thing I just got to make sure of is just got to make sure this thing hangs down enough too where, because this is our actual input we need to put into the other side. So I'll have to actually grab a pin. Holley gives you another side of this connector where it's already all pinned. So I'm going to steal one of those wires out of there and then crimp the other side of it right to this. And then that way it'll be already pinned in there for the 85 sensor and all that good stuff. All right, the wiring is ran into the car. It actually was not very bad at all. I can actually get my hand kind of where the hole is, so I was able to pull everything down. So you can see, you know, for the power, we got a crap ton of wiring. The actual connectors on this harness, they don't quite come down far enough, right? Because on the 937F kit for the Fox body, Holley actually had the computer here, and they had a special bracket that came with it to hold it underneath this passenger seat. But we're not going to be able to do that, which I'm totally cool with that. I don't care if we can, you know, stick that computer somewhere up there or whatever. We'll figure that out later. But now we just need to start getting all these wires connected. So again, it's going to be pretty simple. I need to do a little bit of pinning into here. So you can see what the guys did for MF Customs, right? They actually have it labeled tack signal J1A pin 28. So I'm going to actually terminate this, and then we'll pull the wire out of here, put that in there. That's good to go. This is going to be a 12-volt switched. This is also a 12-volt switch that I'm going to tie in there from the Holley harness. And I've already got a 12-volt switched wire. I think it's that guy. So again, this is from MF Customs. Yep, there's my 12-volt switched. So I just need to connect those into there. Easy peasy. No, I lied. One more, the fuel pump wire. So the fuel pump wire from MF Customs, same thing. I'm going to pin that into the Holley. That wire, I remember, was a little bit short, so I'll probably have to just put a butt connector, extend it, and then we'll get that into the back of the Holley harness as well. Then we can start to kind of leave this, start to kind of connect stuff in the engine bay and find out how much of this harness we need to pull back out, because that's my concern is, you know, we might need to pull it out, and then we'll kind of see where all this stuff finally lands, and then we can start to figure out, you know, where we're going to mount the computer and all that crap. The other thing I got to do for a wire is my E85 sensor wire. So again, when you buy your harness from the dudes at MF Customs, they already give you the input-output connector, and they already have like some inputs and outputs on here for me for like the AC kickdown and for the fans and all that stuff, right? So I also have that power tap harness I showed you guys earlier, and somewhere that wire is hanging down. Well, anyway, so now we just got to take that wire. It's already got a butt connector on it, and with the Holley kit, let me show you guys. So Holley already gives us, this is the other side of the input-output connector that we don't need it because MF Customs already gave it to us. But we are going to just de-pin this. I'm just going to steal the white with the black wire. Should be pin position C. Yep, so we're going to take that, I'm going to literally pull that out of here. We're going to stick that into the connector in the car. And then the other side will just attach to the butt connector. And boom, that's it, we're done. And we can plug it in and we got E85-inch, baby. All right, so to de-pin this I/O connector, I had to watch a freaking YouTube video to figure it out. But so you take off the little back here, you just take a screwdriver, that pops right off. That's no big deal. But then it was figuring out, okay, how the heck do you get the pin out? So we're gonna try taking out the black or the white with the black. So they said just take the smallest like Allen key head you got, or there's actually like a de-pinning tool, which I should order that right now on Amazon before I forget. It's just so I have one. But you basically just take it, put it right through like where the big opening is in the actual connector. You push and you should feel, yeah, well, you guys heard it, right? And then this guy should just pop right out. Yep, okay. So this is our wire now that we're gonna take. We're gonna insert it into the connector in the car. And then the other side, we'll just, we'll kind of cut it to length and then butt connector it. And then boom, this is our E85 wire. And I've already got the input-output configured into the Holley computer, so it already knows all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, really, really simple. So I'm gonna put this back together and then save this connector, because in the future, if we add any other inputs or outputs, then at least we got the stuff to salvage it. All right, so we got our E85 all wired up. So you can see, whoop, get that light out of the way. So you can see, so we just put the other end of the butt connector, got that plugged in, and it's actually plugged in. So this is all good to go. Next, I started working on pulling pin A28 out of the J1A connector here. So this dude, what was this one for? I don't remember. I think it's for, yeah, so this is our tack signal. So I'm going to literally take our pins, which we already had these from the 558304 sub harness. You know, they gave us a whole bunch of extras. So I'm going to go ahead and crimp that on. We're going to insert that in. So that'll be good to go. And the other wire we need to insert in also is, or no, not the 12 volts tack. It's the fuel pump. So the fuel pump one is going to go in here. I think it goes to A2. But that one's really short, so I've got to extend that wire and then crimp an end on it, and then we're gonna stick it in there, and then we'll tape this back up or something so you don't see them. But you know, you could, like, I also went back and forth. You could like open the harness up here and just you know, kind of splice the wire in that way, like cut the wire and then, you know, splice it in so that way it's connected that way. You could do that too if you don't want to deal with the connectors, but it's pretty simple. The way this Holley connector is, man, you just literally push these white tabs in or out, and that releases the pins. So you literally just pull them in and out. It's super freaking awesome. So the hardest part's just crimping them because they're so little, but once you get it crimped, get it in there, good to go. And then the 12 volt switched for the Holley, and then also this is 12 volt switched for the ignition harness for Holley. Those two, I'm just going to put those together on one side, and then we'll butt connector them to my 12 volt switch that the MF Customs guy already gave me. So boom, and then that'll be it. That's all we got left. And then the wiring is done, except for that one chassis ground inside the engine bay. But we'll ground that to a cylinder head. So for these little connectors to crimp them, you guys tell me. I'm sure there's a freaking like professional way to do it, but I just use long needle nose and pry it, clamp it all together. You know, I don't know how else to do it, but it works usually. But you know, cut this thing short, And then, man, it's just so little. Just clamp kind of one side at a time is how I normally do it. And it ain't easy. Tell you what, these things are little. Passes the pull test, baby. All right, boys, wiring is done, except for that ground that, you know, is inside the engine bay. But so pretty easy. I was having trouble to get that push lock back in. I think I figured out what it was. One of the stupid wires had just slid out a little bit. I finally figured it out, got it in, got it all pushed back down. So I think it's all good. All right, the two switch 12-volt wires. These are together here. So they're right here. They go into the 12-volt switch, blah, blah, blah. So we'll have to clean all this up. But what I don't know is right now, like, this is not long enough to probably really reach under here. I mean, it's close, but what I'm worried is we still might need to actually pull some slack this way. And so if that's the case, then this computer, of course, has to go up here. So anyway, I think that's next step. We'll leave this here how it is. And let's go ahead and take the harness, start pulling the harness all the way through and stuff. Let's keep rocking on. Now, one weird thing I wanted to point out to you guys is everything is labeled on the Holley setup, right? So, you know, like, shows you that's your ignition, map sensor. For some reason, though, my oil and fuel were not, they weren't labeled. And then, you know, they're the same connector. So I was confused, but, you know, no big deal. Basically, the difference is one has a gray wire that's different versus a purple. So I just had to come over to our diagrams, which Holley gives you all the diagrams and everything. And then I was able to pretty simply determine, okay, oil is gray, fuel pressure one is with purple wire. So easy peasy. So I'm just starting to kind of look at all this stuff, trying to figure out how to lay it all in. Man, I tried just grabbing some wires through this Hi Ram. I need some, like, super long needle nose pliers or something, but this is going to be difficult. Now that everything's in here, that's the hard part, right? Is just trying to get all this crap, like, fished through. The majority of our wiring needs to go through the Hi Ram, you know, to be able to come down here, to be able to reach the sensors, all that stuff. So it's a little bit of a pain in the butt, but we'll get there, no problem. Now, the one thing I see that I think is going to be an issue is this kind of whole jumble here of wires. This can kind of go through the middle of the Hi Ram. And fuel, that's no problem. Our fuel pressure sensor is right here on the back of the fuel rail. Again, I ended up just using kind of a cheap 0 to 100 PSI pressure sensor. So that'll be no problem. But the one that I think is an issue is the oil pressure. So this dude is going to need to go all the way out and then down quite a ways to be able to reach that sensor. And I do not have any faith that it's long enough, right? I mean, it's probably only going to come out to here. It needs to be at least another foot or two. And then once we get this in here, there's going to be almost no way to be able to cut and do it. So I'm going to go ahead, cut this thing, splice it right now. And then that way we'll be good to go, right? And so we'll just make it really, really long. I'll probably try to take some quick measurements, but want to get that done now. I think everything else looks okay, like the maps in the back here. You know, all that stuff's going to be fine, right? So say all that stuff's kind of like that. Look how much shorter these become. So yeah, hopefully it's going to be tight. Hopefully our TPS and the map sensors, that's actually at the back. So that's back here, right here. That's our MAT sensor. So damn, all this stuff's going to be close. All right, I'm going to have to go through kind of one by one and just get an idea, because it's going to be easier to lengthen any of this stuff right now. You know, or might not even have to lengthen. Some of it might be able to just to have this cut and then have it moved, you know, have the loom like moved or whatever, and then that'll fit better. Because again, this kit, you know, is probably more so made for like a Ford side-mounted manifold, right? It's not really made for this front-mounted Holley Hi Ram, so that's why we're running into a little bit of issues like this. All right, I got the ignition harness all plugged in, and I've got the ground for this cylinder head on. This one, remember, we're gonna have to make another little ground and then put it together. So it was definitely easier to do that from underneath the car. I'll show you real quick. All right, so underneath this bad boy, all right, we can see there's our little bolt. So basically I just took a cylinder head bolt, nice grade 8 bolt, and then we've got one of those like little star washer things just to help it kind of, you know, dig into the head and just make sure it's on there and, you know, getting a good ground contact. But yeah, really easy. So pretty simple from here. I'm hoping the other side's that easy too from the bottom. Tell you boys what, I had like a $40 super long plier set in my Amazon cart, and I did not hit checkout. I don't know what happened, but really regretting that. I'm having to use like 2 long screwdrivers together like an idiot, and it's, man, really hard to fish this stuff through this Hi Ram because you got 0 room back here to try to get your hands in there. It's a real pain in the butt. 0 room in the front too, but I like how it looks. So maybe let's get that ground done. Then we can maybe get the injector harness in, get the injectors hooked up, and then I still have to do one last kind of audit on all these sensors and just to see if I need to extend any, because I need to do that before we get it all in there. All right, boys, so I am extending the oil pressure sensor. So when you do an extension like this, there's 3 wires, right? So if we just cut it flat, then we'll have 3 butt connectors, and it'll be really lumpy and, you know, fat in the harness. So to kind of keep your harness smooth, you want to offset those bad boys. That's what we did. So I'm going to cut some wire. I think I'm just going to make this thing pretty long. Like I'm going to add like 2 feet. And that way, if I got some extra wire or whatever, I can just kind of tuck it away somewhere. But I'd rather have it be a little bit too long. And where we got to go with this thing is just, I'm still not even sure how we're going to go, but so it might snake down here, down that way, and then it'll kind of 90 into the connector. You can see the silver connector right there. Come on. Yeah, so that's where it's got to go. So I'm thinking that's what I'm thinking, down there. And then there's the braided line coming out. I could probably zip tie it to the braided line just to make sure it stays away from the belts, all that stuff. And then I also pulled some more slack out of this harness. And then the 2 leftover wires I didn't use, they were just like super long. So I left myself maybe 3 or 4 inches, cut it, and then I wrapped those into the harness just that way the harness isn't all big and bulky. But to make this all work, I think we do need to kind of get this branch right here, this section. This needs to be pulled and kind of be right behind the manifold. And then that way, that should give us the length we need for these IAC and throttle position to be able to connect up there, and the coolant temps right there too. So I think that'll work. That, of course, is going to shorten even more our connectors here and where our computer goes. But yeah, I think ultimately it's not going to be able to go here. We're going to have to put it up here in this kick pin. Now I did end up cutting 24 inches. When I did kind of a quick dirty measurement, I was getting like 18 inches. So yeah, I said, you know what, let's do 24. So just got 3 wires cut. They're all the same color just because we're only splicing in this little section. It'll have loom on it and stuff anyway. And then just got 3 little butt connectors. I like to use these ones here that have the heat shrink tubing kind of built onto it. Then you don't even really need to use an extra piece on there. So yeah, we're just gonna get these all crimped really quick, get this all loomed back up and everything. All right, so I threw some extra loom on this thing. I wish I had this nice like flex loom, but I don't. I just have some crappy plastic loom. So I covered it with the, I don't know what the heck this is called, soft tape, some kind of electrical tape that's like supposed to be high temp. But anyway, so this thing's long as hell, should be good. Probably too long, but good enough. So before we take this whole jumble of crap and try to shove it all through the middle of the Hi Ram, because there's already freaking coolant lines and the ignition harness in there, I think first I'm going to take the fuel injection harness and get that all connected, because that's going to be, I think, a really big pain in the butt to try to get those all in there. I don't know. I almost should just go on the outside of the Hi Ram. Yeah, maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll go on the outside of the Hi Ram and just connect them here. I kind of wanted it inside though, just so it looked cooler, but that might be the way to do it. That way there's less crap in there in the middle too, so we can kind of shove everything through there. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of mess with it. We'll figure it out. All right, so I did decide, and there is enough room and stuff to be able to run this harness along in between, you know, the cylinder head and the rail. That's fine. I'm actually, now I'm thinking about it, I think that's better. If I was trying to get those things from the middle and swing each one around, you know, 90 degrees or 180 degrees to fit, I think that'd be a pain in the butt. And then if I ever need to do any kind of service, you know, if we're driving this thing, something happens, it's going to be easier to just have that harness right there. So I think that's how we're going to do it. And since we're going to do it that way, then I think we can probably actually go ahead, take this whole jumble of crap, and let's try to get that whole thing fished through. You know, at least especially the front stuff, and then we'll have the map and mat sensor, which the mat sensor is pretty easy. I can get to that right there. The map sensor's from underneath. Man, I think that's going to be a pain in the butt. But I might be able to even sneak my hand from underneath and just go straight up. So yeah, all right, let's start fishing this crap through there. All right, guys, so I ended up losing my footage here. My phone ended up dying because I was recording so freaking long. But we did get all this wiring put on. Now, the front of the harness that went to the throttle body, all that stuff was super duper tight to fit on this Hi Ram. And then because that was so tight, it also made the MAT sensor, which is on the back of the manifold, made that super hard to get that installed as well. But we did get it without having to lengthen it. But if I could do it again, I probably would have just lengthened the TPS and the IAC, and it would have just made everything so much easier. But you know, I'd already put it through and I didn't want to pull it back out. The next problem we ran into is the Holley map sensor connector is kind of like an older connector, like a mid-90s GM style connector, and so that wouldn't go on to my Gen 4 LS9 2.5 bar map sensor. It has a totally different connector. So I did not realize that, which is super unfortunate. So I ended up having to order a new harness connector, and then we're gonna get that installed later on. All right, I got the ground all set up. You can't see it, but it's down there. It's all connected. That was easy peasy, good to go. Also, just in case if I decide to get frisky, I did run that vacuum line just from the wastegate opening, and I just got it tapped over the car, and then that little 1/4-inch pneumatic line fit right over one of the adapters Holley gave me. So I do have that, you know, installed. So technically we could start the car. I'll just probably, if I do try to start it tonight, I'll just run it through the little handheld versus my computer, because my computer's already set up with a 2.5 bar, and I don't want to change that. But we could just, you know, just try to do a start. So yeah, I think next we just got to put the downpipe on. I'll have to screw the wideband in, and then we just got to connect our J1A, J1B connectors. I could probably even do that right now, see what happens. And then the other thing we still got to do is once we get this thing powered up with some power, we need to also go and we've got to get the dual sync all set up. So that should be pretty easy. I mean, it's already installed. Now we just got to rotate it, I think counterclockwise, to get the little lights to go on and off, and then that'll tell us we're good. So I mean, that should be a really pretty simple setup. All right, this thing's connected. So let's finish doing the wideband, and then we can apply power, hook the battery back up. Let's see if this thing lights up. Let's see what goes on. I love having a convertible, by the way. It's so awesome to be able to work in here, have the top down. So much better. All right, downpipe is on, O2 sensor's on. I did hook up the little screen, the J1A, J1B connectors. So we could probably go ahead and give this thing power. Let's hook up the battery, and then we'll see what we can do with the dual sync. I am not looking forward to this because there is like crap ton of crap in the way. So, I mean, it should be easy enough to spin it, right, and see the light, but man, tightening that bolt down looks like it's gonna suck. Oh, and we still have to tidy this thing up. Otherwise, that's gonna be a big mess. All right, fellas, so far we put in a little bit of power steering fluid. It only took like half a quart or something. It needs to have a pump run, and then we can really fill it up. And then I put in the gallon of antifreeze that I had laying around. We still need to go to the store. I need to get some more distilled water. And then I actually just tried to turn it over, not start it, but just turn it over to power. Everything did power on, which is good. So let me show you guys that real quick. So check it out. Boop. So all that seems to work. Nothing caught on fire, nothing sparking. So that's great. What I was going to show you guys next was the dual sync. So with the dual sync, it's already dropped in there. and you can see both lights are on. So when I dropped it in, I did a good job, I guess. Now on our Ford, it rotates counterclockwise. So we just have to spin it slowly counterclockwise until that crank sensor light goes out. And then we rotate it back until it comes back on, and then we stop. As soon as it comes back on, we stop, and that is it. And that bad boy is supposed to be set. Now my engine is already at 50 degrees before top dead center, because that's how you're supposed to drop it in. And on this Ford, it was a little bit of a pain in the butt because we don't have, at least a stock harmonic balancer doesn't go to 50 degrees. So Holley gave us like kind of some kind of dimension to measure. So I had to measure, you know, part of the circumference of the harmonic balancer. Then I made a mark and stuff. Actually, you can see I highlighted the mark in yellow. You can't really see it. There's too much crap in the way. But anyway, so let me show you this real quick. So let's see, counterclockwise, right? Okay, lights out, go back on. All right, so that should be it. Now I gotta lock this thing down and then try to get the stupid cover on it too. Jesus, this is gonna be terrible. What did I do with the screws for this, man? Okay, well, so we gotta find those screws, lock that thing down, and dude, we are like ready to program the thing and try to start it. I mean, I probably should go get some more radiator fluid, but yeah. All right, boys, we spent about 9 hours today getting this whole Holley Terminator set up, all ready to go, all done, and it is. I mean, except for that map sensor that we're waiting to come, you know, we can still start it, of course, with the onboard sensor. That's what we're going to do. But this video is getting super long, so I'm going to split it into part 2 to show the actual start, and then this video is just going to be encompassing, you know, all the actual installation. So if you guys are putting this 550937 into your small block Ford or into your Mustang for sure, hopefully it helped you guys out and made it a lot easier. You know, you can see kind of what I did and what little troubles and issues we had. But, you know, overall, it took me like 9 hours yesterday. But, you know, a lot of that is it's just slow going, especially because I waited to put the harness on till the very end. I had to work around a lot of other stuff. So in retrospect, I kind of think I should have put the harness on early on before we did a lot of the other work, because looking at how the harness ended up laying out, it wouldn't have really been in the way too much. So yeah, I think I kind of made a mistake doing that. I should have put it on initially. So that would be my recommendation for you guys. You know, once you get your motor dropped in or whatever, start to lay that thing out and then just kind of work around it. That's probably going to be the easier way. If you guys haven't already, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll catch you boys on the next one.